They say there's a man who completes it all, a legend who's been replaying old games that he's already completed. Even when the games are so massive and detailed that any sane gamer would settle for just the achievements list. That man's the Completionist, and he's got his sights set on a little old western called Red Dead Redemption. In days long gone, that is in the original episode from 2012, the Completionist took a back seat, but now it's a whole nother tale. One that shows Red Dead Redemption pays faithful homage to the spirit of classic westerns by both engaging in tropes and stereotypes and subverting. But that faithfulness also makes Red Dead a bittersweet experience to complete. But I'll let the man himself tell you.
Howdy everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Completionist New Game Plus, the show where I'm recompleting the first 120 episodes I ever did here for the show. As the voice of the West just said, I never actually completed Red Dead Redemption in the original episode of the show. That's changing right now. So saddle up, grab your 6 shooters, and let's ride. Because today, we're gonna recomplete, or rather, complete, Red Dead Redemption. Let's begin. From New York City to Miami to Los Angeles to private school, Rockstar has been everywhere. Over the years, they've developed a reputation for making the most stylish and cinematic open-world games around. The worlds that Rockstar creates are legendary because of how alive they feel. Everything from radio stations to mini-games fleshes out their worlds and makes them easy places to get lost. They're satirical, modern sandboxes. But Red Dead Redemption is special. In this game, for the first time, Rockstar applied their signature cinematic open-world approach to non-modern gameplay. It took hundreds of people and years of development, but the end result is iconic. Applying that signature flair to a totally different genre and time period had a profound impact on the gaming landscape. Red Dead Redemption broke the mold of immersion to become a true playable period piece. Players diving into Red Dead Redemption are instantly transported back in time. Bounty hunter John Marston rides into Armadillo on a big black train, hoping to find a better life for himself after years of being on the wrong side of the law. He knows he can't escape his past, but maybe he can make a better future. Beholden to the law, he's tasked with taking out members of his old gang, but there's a whole world to explore in the meantime. Red Dead Redemption's gameplay is often simplified as a Western Grand Theft Auto, and honestly, that's not a bad way to think about it. It's a third-person adventure game full of side quests to fulfill, guns to purchase, challenges to complete, and a grand story that takes players all over a gigantic map. But in the end, it's all about the setting. Only instead of stealing cars and shooting gangsters, John Marston rides horses and does the classic high noon drawdown on those who cross him. Now, there have been many Western-themed video games in the past. In fact, Red Dead Redemption is kind of a spiritual successor to Red Dead Revolver, a Rockstar-published Western game from 2004. But the two games are wildly different in everything but the cowboy boots. Rockstar went above and beyond to create a period piece. The development team spent time and effort visiting locations throughout the US to build a sense of fidelity. Dan Houser, the lead writer of the game and former head of creative for Rockstar, wanted the game to be bigger than any the company had created up until that point. During development, the team watched classic westerns to find inspiration and even spent time at the National Photographic Archives in Washington, D.C. to get a strong sense of what life looked like a century ago. But beyond visuals and authenticity, there is always something to do in this game. It's so much more than just a playable movie. So again, to reiterate, this video actually marks my first time completing this game for the show. This was a mediocreist episode, meaning I essentially just provided color commentary on someone else's experience. And we've only ever made 3 of those types of episodes, and frankly, it's kind of weird that a game this popular never got a full completionist treatment. Alex and I remedied that with a Beard Bros playthrough, where we played through the entire game together. We even blasted through the Undead Nightmare DLC, which had a whole new single-player campaign with another list of achievements to conquer. And over the last several months, almost for the last year, I've been playing online multiplayer with community members for hours every week to work my way up the online ranks. Now, even though this game is gigantic, it's a Rockstar game, so duh, the act of playing through it has been a breeze. I have been able to seamlessly play the game on the entire Xbox family of consoles. The same game save file across 3 generations, 360, Xbox One, and now the Series X. It's been extremely cool. Being able to play my original 360 disc on a totally new system with 0 hiccups has been a godsend. And even the online multiplayer has gone incredibly smooth, thanks to a bunch of extremely helpful and dedicated fans. Red Dead Redemption and the Undead Nightmares achievement lists aren't terrible in and of themselves, but there is another factor at play here: Rockstar's signature in-game checklists, known as challenges. These range from things like shooting hats off of people's heads to finding and killing a chupacabra. All of these challenges contribute to 100% in-game completion. But the thing I'm dreading most is reaching every rank in the online multiplayer. From previous experience prestiging games like this, I know it will take a long ass time. It might not be incredibly difficult, but it might boil down to being boring, which is my least favorite thing. Now, this game leaves it all out on the field, going for broke in the biggest way possible, and the end result is undeniable. The recent sequel, that's actually a prequel, Red Dead Redemption 2, has sold something like 30 million copies, but that's because of the foundation that the first game laid way back in 2010. And that foundation was incredibly strong. Even though doing repetitive challenges and grinding for hours in the online multiplayer took away a little of the grand mystique that Red Dead Redemption is shrouded with, I was still impressed at any given moment of playtime. The challenges and achievements may break immersion a little, but the spirit of what Rockstar is trying to evoke is incredibly powerful.
Well now, we've got a little context for this here hootenanny. Red Dead Redemption takes players back in time for the most faithful depiction of the West this side of the Rockies. It's the most high-fidelity Western game experience the average player could ask for. But for the Completionist, and those like him, those Western tropes are utterly subverted into something else.
Red Dead Redemption sticks to its guns, if its guns are anything that you think of when you hear Western. From iconic images, to landscapes, to full-on playable situations. This game is full of content that will make players go, "Yup, that's a Western alright." But if you think of a Western trope, Red Dead Redemption's got it. A swinging door saloon with the jangly piano? Got it. Wanted posters slapped on the walls of the sheriff's office? You know it. Calling people out to have a shootout in the middle of a dusty road? Literally one of the first things that happens in the game. Do you want to form a posse and go after some bandits who've been causing trouble? Saddle up, partner. Hog tie a bounty and then throw him on the back of your horse so you can dump him at the marshal's feet later on? Absolutely. Shoot whiskey in a bar because you can? Why not? There are deadly quick draw shootouts where the player must hover their hand over their pistol until their adversary goes for their gun and then light them up. Every time this happens, there's a tense buildup that any spaghetti Western fan would get a thrill from. But there are other iconic shooting galleries as well. You ever wanted to defend a stagecoach from bandits as you're going from one town to the next? That's basically Red Dead Redemption. And you can even do the thing where a character is strung up by the neck to be hung and you shoot the rope so they go free. And it was truly up to me if I wanted to spare the time to help them out. I could play the hero or the villain or land somewhere in between. It feels like a lot of Westerns lean into the morally gray tropes, and Red Dead Redemption celebrates this. There are blacksmiths galore, gunsmiths aplenty. You can whistle and your horse will gallop right to your side. And then you can ride that horse to the closest saloon and tie it up out front as you head in to escape the sun's glare. Practically everything you've ever seen in Western media, from railroads to barn burning, has a home here. You want Mexican revolutions and snake oil salesmen? Or a good-hearted marshal who's constantly under fire? What about hardscrabble farmers doing everything they can just to survive in the harsh reality that is day-to-day living in the Wild West? It's all right here. And you know what? I love these tropes. Well, maybe not the murdering of Native Americans. The fact that Red Dead Redemption goes so hard on letting players see and experiencing the defining images and actions of the Old West rules. It made me feel confident and cool. This game is full of references and homages and callbacks to Western media from the last 50 or 60 years, and it's awesome. Now, for players who are just moseying through the game, whether for just a few hours to experience the story, they'll appreciate these tropes. In fact, for those who just want to experience the story, they'll probably encounter everything I just mentioned. You'll get all of that and have a rootin', shootin', dare I say, tootin' good time. But for completionists, I'm not so sure. For completionists, this adherence to fidelity becomes something else entirely. Those who choose to complete this game will see it becoming something else, something that doesn't feel like a Western at all. In a typical Western tale, or at least those that have risen to the top of public consciousness, a lone gunman tends to arrive in a town in distress. After solving the problem at hand, whether that's the bandits that involve the town or corrupt officials, they're usually able to saunter out on their own, right off into the sunset. Now that's in the context of most modern Westerns. Red Dead Redemption's plot, on the other hand, is epically complex. The player character, John Marston, has a complicated past. He's a man with a code, sure, but he's also been a stone-cold killer for Dutch Vanderland's gang. At the start of the game, his past actions have finally caught up with him. Rather than settle scores with his old gang members on his own, Marston is basically in the government's pocket from the jump. All he wants to do is leave the past behind and settle into a new life for himself with his wife and kid. But instead, he's manipulated into being a triggerman by greater powers. But what a triggerman he is! In Red Dead Redemption, players get to mess around with one of my favorite gun mechanics from any game ever. It's called Deadeye, and it's amazing. Aiming with a gun and clicking down on the right stick puts John in Deadeye mode, which slows down time and turns everything sepia-toned. As long as Deadeye is active, John can paint targets and then blast them to hell once the timer runs up. This mechanic successfully makes John feel like a legendary gunslinger, and upgrading the meter fully made me feel invincible. It's unique, and it's a great way to subvert the adherence to realism that's everywhere else in Red Dead Redemption, but yet still makes John Marston feel like a total badass. Plus, it's the f***ing Matrix. We all love the Matrix, right? Bullet time is tight. Instead of John getting roped into one last job before retirement or deciding he wants to settle his scores of his own free will, he's sort of blackmailed into doing so. The story has surprising depth and a real sense of expansiveness. As I played through this game and saw the plot unfold, I realized Red Dead Redemption was unlike any other Western. John's quest spans not just to the frontier, but spills over into a revolutionary war in Nuevo Paraíso, and even the wilderness of New Elizabeth, this game's parallel to Canada. Rather than get in, solve the immediate problems facing him, and get out, John is further and further pulled into the struggles of those around him. By this game's very design, side quests keep getting John tangled up in ways that would never really happen in a normal Western tale. The NPCs that John deals with aren't stock stereotypes with one-note stories. They're complicated individuals. And I couldn't help getting involved in Bonnie McFarlane's life or the struggles of conman Nigel West Dickens. I love how complicated and dark the story gets the longer it goes on. I love that John Marston is so well drawn. He gets more and more enmeshed in the unfolding chaos of the world, instead of being able to chase his dream the way that he wants. The story is at times heartbreaking and at times hilarious, as I kept getting distracted by side quests or other short missions. This is a man who wants to disappear from the world and have a quiet life, and instead keeps being forced into doing the government's dirty work. I found it depressing, yet incredibly compelling. The whole story is much too long and rich to feel like any Western I've experienced before. It keeps going on and on, completely blowing up any kind of 3-act structure you might expect from a film. There is nuance to John's character, which makes what he goes through even more heartbreaking. Rather than becoming a legendary gunman or fighter like Billy the Kid or Wyatt Earp, his journey ends unceremoniously. I never expected the game to take such big risks with the story, and as a player, I was completely along for the ride. I love this character's arc, and by the end, I was convinced that he's earned his redemption. But of course, he doesn't get that happy ending. It's bleak, yet bold. But with all DLCs about zombies, there's even more deviation from the tradition in the Undead Nightmare DLC. In this zombie apocalypse story, John Marston has to deal with the end of the world Old West style. Rockstar went all out to make this zombie story really feel like the perfect DLC. It's got the same basic gameplay, but enough is completely different with the setting and aesthetic to provide a totally new and fun experience. And just look at this blood red river. Freaky stuff. It's rare for Westerns to play around with other genres, unless it's like Jonah Hex, Cowboys vs. Aliens. But Undead Nightmare actually does this all well, keeping up the Rockstar level quality. But back to Westerns in general. There's a cadence to well-written Western stories. Story pacing usually darts from action to suspense to drama to catharsis. But in Red Dead Redemption, pacing slows from a crawl to a dead stop at times. For the sake of completion, the momentum lulls from performing mundane tasks to frivolous distractions to hilariously low stakes that seem at odds with the high drama at hand for the rest of the story. The random challenges that fatten up the bulk of Red Dead Redemption's playtime are barely story related. There are 4 main types of challenges: Sharpshooter, Survivalist, Master Hunter, and Treasure Hunter. Each challenge type has 10 ranks to reach, and each rank is tougher to reach than the last. The breadth and the variety within each challenge is great, even if completing them stretches the credulity of what would happen in a standard Western. And honestly, things get crazy slow and even boring in trying to complete all of these challenges. Take the Survivalist challenges. Never did I ever expect John Marston, a badass with gigantic scars across his face, to spend hours roaming the landscape picking up tiny little flowers and herbs. And I didn't just have to find 3 of each. Some ranks required me to find 8, 10, 12, to even 15 of specific flowers. And the final rank? Find 10 violet snowdrops, only found in the tall tree areas, and then 2 more of every other herb. Legendary bounty hunter John Marston is also a botanist. It's completely unexpected and has nothing to do with any Western trope that I'm aware of. Similarly, the Master Hunter challenges had me spending an incredible amount of time looking for specific critters, killing them, and taking their skins and pelts. What's more, because Red Dead Redemption has this incredible commitment to fidelity, it takes a little extra time to skin each critter. So not only did I spend time tracking, hunting, and killing every damn coyote, elk, armadillo, and bighorn sheep I saw, I had to sit down and slice them up. And the higher ranks of this challenge had me looking for legendary variants of these animals, sort of like in Far Cry 3. And then there's the non-related challenge stuff that still took forever. I actually like that you have to break wild horses in before you're able to ride them around, but it always takes longer than you think to do this. You have to lasso them, usually from horseback, then hop on its back, and then make sure you don't get bucked off until it's calm enough to be subdued. Cattle herding even appears. Having to round up scattered cows seems like it would be beneath John's pay grade, yet here I was, making big loops so I wouldn't lose any bovine off of a cliff. It's slow and it feels kind of random. Red Dead Redemption once again digs into the details, so herding cattle is never like, find one lost cow. It's more in the vein of, bring back this entire herd to our barn. Hunting for treasure is a staple of a certain type of Western, and Red Dead Redemption really leaned into this idea. John can find treasure maps, but rather than a simple X marks the spot to be waypointed to a mini-map, the maps are more cryptic. The map might depict a gnarled old tree near an overhanging cliffside, or specific rock formations near a horizon. There's a real sense of mystery here, but it still completely halted the action whenever I decided to hunt for treasure. I had mixed feelings about how the action was broken up in these myriad ways. Sometimes it was kind of soothing to just scour the landscape for one specific type of flower. And we know John has a sensitive side despite his gruff exterior, so maybe it does make a certain amount of sense for John to take a break now and then pick up some plants. What wore me down was doing it so many times for so many different types of plants. And I even had to do this to satisfy a bonus challenge during hideout completion sometimes. At least with the hunting, the pelts were extremely valuable to sell. I appreciate that money in Red Dead Redemption largely feels like it means something, at least for a good part of the game. Skinning critters was a consistent way to get cash and usually more efficient than looting dead bandits for whatever they had in their pockets. But even with the monetary value of the skins, I eventually started to question just why I had to do this so many times. Maybe I want to leave these legendary animals alone. The game even applies Rockstar's twisted sense of humor to hunting. There's an achievement that pops off for hunting all the frontier buffaloes to extinction. Manifest Destiny. That's right, everyone. I am the one who made buffalo extinct, just for completion's sake. And I never saw one again. I actually felt bad when I earned this achievement. I generally didn't mind taking short breaks from the dramatic plot. The ebb and flow of pacing is important in any story, but the wild swings in depth of involvement in some side quests and challenges truthfully doesn't always feel very Western. Pauses in the action are necessary, but a lot of this starts to feel like padding for completionists. Again, a totally different medium, but most Western movies last around 2 or 3 hours. Even something like Deadwood, the HBO Western with the best dialogue of all time, only ran for 3 seasons, and it had a made-for-TV movie. But in Red Dead Redemption, completionists will spend dozens upon dozens of hours achieving minimal gains. We're talking entire series of gun-smoked lengths of time. And that series ran over 600 episodes. Now look, I'm not trying to compare video games to movies, but in a movie, even when things are at their slowest parts, you know it won't last for very long. A good Western makes use of narrative tools like pacing to heighten the tension. That's why a good shootout takes so long to build up, and why those close-ups on Clint Eastwood's eyes are so iconic. Stakes are built on tension. Throughout the game, the narrative stakes are incredibly high, but diminishes as completionists reckon with side quests and challenges. But there's yet another entire other incredible time sink: the online multiplayer. Now I know, another incredible single player experience with what seems like a tacked online component. I felt like a lot of the online stuff was pretty samey. You know, you've got a goal, you gotta shoot some people, they shoot you back. But they must have done something right if there are still so many people playing to this day. Now, the community isn't what it was at this game's height, especially now that Red Dead Online is a thing, but until I started to really drill down into completion, I was having a pretty okay time. Instead of simply taking Red Dead Redemption and making it a battle royale, Rockstar basically copy-pasted a ton of challenges from the single-player mode into the multiplayer. There are a handful of unique challenges too, broken up into several different categories. We've got gambling challenges, horse racing, stronghold missions, even some crossover with the Undead Nightmare DLC with Zombie Overrun, but that's not all. There are stat challenges as well, things like having 5-to-1 kill ratio or running over 100 people on my horse. I even had to travel 100 miles on foot. These stat challenges ask a lot of time from the player, and between the stat challenges, the PvP challenges, and cooperative aspect, there's enough to keep players on the hook for dozens of hours. But that's not all. Because of all those things that I just mentioned, from the easiest to the most difficult, earns my character experience points. Earn enough points and you'll level up. Reach level 50 and you rank up and have the option to pass into legend, which takes you back to level 1. And there are 5 ranks to earn, so that means prestiging this entire process 5 times. 250 levels worth of experience points. And between all of the ranks, every single challenge resets. Yes, that's right. And now you have a sense of the road stretching in front of me. Most Westerns evoke a sense of the vastness of the frontier, right? After earning just a few levels in online mode, I felt like I was being asked to cross the Great Plains totally on foot. It's an insane amount of things to do. Fortunately, I had a little help online. A great group of fans and friends helped me out via the Twitch Discord, and so many Discords I've started since I've done this show. Shoutouts to all of you on screen right now for joining me in the insanity and helping me achieve the impossible in a slightly sooner time frame. To give you guys an idea, to complete all of the online multiplayer, we met every Sunday for the last 6 months to get this done. Even with all of that help, which was exceptionally useful when trying to get a $5,000 bounty, there is still so much that's just a gigantic time suck online. Why in the ever-loving do I have to pick up all the plants again in online mode with the same requirements to rank up? I already did it in the single player. Do I really need to do it again online? As much as I praise this game's meticulousness to attention to detail, the gambling challenges take that attention and use it to punish completionists. Off the top of your guys' head, do you know what the odds are to win with a royal flush in a standard game of poker? Go ahead, throw out your best guess. Let me tell you, it's roughly 649,739 to 1. So, out of over 600,000 hands, I might win one with that specific set of cards for that specific challenge. I literally had to wait for the luck of the draw to do this specific challenge. There's even a challenge for playing 10 hours total of Liar's Dice. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Liar's Dice, especially from Pirates of the Caribbean. It's a super fun game, but 10 total combined hours is a long goddamn time. Padding for the sake of padding. The online started off as a fun diversion whenever I wanted to take a break from single player, but as it became clear, this would be where I would be spending the bulk of my time. I started to resent it. And even beyond the impending doom of knowing this will take more time than is even remotely reasonable, this game stops feeling even a little like a cool Western. It starts to feel like work. And not good honest work. I mean more like Cowboy Sisyphus and Cowboy Hell. Online multiplayer literally became a part-time job that I had for the last several months. Every Sunday, and frankly more often than that, I would clock in and grind for experience so I could rank up and prestige even further. It's repetitive, it's annoying, And even though it has its fun, intense moments, the thrill is long gone by the time I reached the final rank and became a legend of the West. To bring it back to films, I wanted this movie to end ages ago, but instead, I'm stuck in the theater and the floor is sticky and my popcorn is empty and the movie just started over for the 50th time in a row, and that's what earning ranks in this game started to feel like. But even though I grew to despise the length of time it took to complete the online multiplayer, there is still so much to love in Red Dead Redemption. Players looking for a genuine Western vibe will get it, but there is so much more. If you're all in like me, there is far, far more to complete than I ever imagined. The rewards are too big, but are they justified?
Completing Red Dead Redemption is a journey. Like Marston's trek to create a better life for himself, the Completionist went through ups and downs, satisfaction and heartbreak. Sometimes he felt like things would never break his way. And just like the conclusion to Marston's journey, the rewards for completing Red Dead are ultimately bittersweet.
There's the good. Awesome outfits and perks. Rockstar has always been meticulous with aesthetics, and completing sets of challenges and missions on my way to completion unlocks different outfits, and most outfits have helpful perks associated with them. Earning 100% in-game completion by finishing all the challenges, finding all rare weapons, earning every other outfit, completing jobs, obtaining safe houses, clearing gang hideouts, completing bounties, and finishing the main story earned me a badass completion bonus. The Bureau outfit. Marston has a lot of awesome outfits to wear in Red Dead Redemption, but the Bureau outfit might be one of the most useful. It's black, it's got a sweet hat, and it's downright sleek. Best of all, the perk associated with this outfit literally places Marston above the law. The law will no longer come after me whenever I would do something that would normally be considered a crime. Basically, it gave me carte blanche to do whatever I pleased, and I wouldn't have to worry about getting chased or punished in that process. Going after the 100% in-game completion in both the main game and the DLC just feels right. I was constantly compelled to explore, and mostly felt like the game wanted me to do so as well. Of course, there's the bad. Most perks are locked to specific outfits, so cool gameplay perks such as the very useful Expert Hunter perk that let me collect double skins for animals, I had to wear the associated outfit for. This isn't something out of left field, but I think I've gotten a little spoiled from stuff like the most recent open world Spider-Man games, which let me mix and match perks with outfits. And the ugly, the online multiplayer. Reaching the level 5 legend status in online took me something like 40 hours in grinding. I want to reiterate, 40 hours in grinding, just grinding, and that's only focused on leveling up to get those prestige ranks. And there's not a lot of reason to do so. I mean, at the very least, I unlocked the super fast zebra mount, for the online mode that I'm completely sick of playing. At least it looks really cool. But mostly it's for online bragging rights for a decade-old game. It was never really a great feeling. I appreciated the badges and the new characters and the dozens and dozens of online multiplayer titles. It was almost as if I was being rewarded the entire time, which is why I chose to complete the online portion so thoroughly. But overall, it was utterly exhausting to do everything in the online multiplayer. When I completed Red Dead Redemption, there were 94 out of 94 achievements earned. Is this the most achievements I've ever earned in a single game? Maybe? I think so. 24 outfits unlocked. Most I was able to earn by completing challenges and missions, but there were a few that I earned just by having the right version of the game. Thanks Game of the Year edition. 1 mythical unicorn with eternal rainbows and butterflies broken to my undead will. 250 levels earned in online multiplayer, reaching rank 5 and resetting to 1 5 times. After a while, this was torture. No joke. 20 buffalo exterminated from the frontier, which net me the Manifest Destiny achievement. And that wasn't even the darkest secret achievement in the game. 153 hours played, 21 of which were spent in Deadeye mode. And 1 location, the chaotic and beautiful Western frontier that has never been revisited in any games in the same way. This really is a once-in-a-generation game. That is until you play Red Dead Redemption 2, because that also is a goddamn masterpiece! There's never been another game that captured imagination like Red Dead Redemption 1 in my eyes. The sequel obviously hits some insane technical feats that are impossible in the first game, but there's a reason that story is a prequel. It didn't want to challenge what the first one did so well. The experience of Red Dead Redemption is a perfect blend of what makes Western special. I constantly felt like I was being taken care of throughout my entire progress with the single player, and honestly, Undead Nightmare is the perfect example of a DLC that changes the base gameplay without messing up the game at all.
With that said, the multiplayer experience is a perfect example of what it's like to take the meticulousness and the perfectness of what it's like to make a single player game and extrapolate it with a bunch of extra things. So, with that in mind, guys, I get this game my completionist rating of finish it.
Finish it!